My name is Martin Garred. I'm the Director and Town Planner at Civity and a Churchill Fellow. In October last year, I travelled to the US, the UK, to Denmark and Sweden to really look at how global countries around the world are dealing with the housing affordability crisis. So if you think about some of our suburban areas, we've traditionally developed based on that concept of the Great Australian Dream, the hills hoisted in the backyard and a single family home. But it's no longer attainable for large parts of our community anymore. Most parts of Queensland, for example, in our suburban areas, they're zoned for low density residential. So you can generally do a single house. In some council areas, you can do a duplex, depending on the size of your block, or maybe if you're on a corner block. But we've traditionally then said for say like a triplex, you have to go to a more intense zone. So we've tended to intensify those or cluster them all together, instead of taking that approach of kind of that salt and pepper and spreading them out throughout our city. So that concept of gentle density, which is what some of the cities around the world are now looking at. I think the zoning is the key part to that. Some of the cities in the US had removed a lot of their planning regulations for diverse housing. So for things like a quadplex or a triplex, you no longer needed planning approval to try to remove one of those risk barriers from the housing process. One of the places I went to was Minneapolis in the United States. They're relatively similar to some of the cities here in Queensland. They've been car dominated like us. They get around using cars. In that city, you can now build anywhere throughout their city up to 3 dwellings on a lot that previously you could only build a single family house. So they've really opened up the planning system to encourage diversity and innovation. As part of doing that though, they also said you also no longer have to build garages or carports, because not everyone wants a car. They still accept some people do, but they're also giving people the choice to build without carports or garages. Maybe you might use a share car or you might use an electric scooter. There's different ways to get around now. And I think the cost of a garage on a house is actually quite substantial. So it's a really innovative way to reduce some of the housing costs. I think sometimes people are disenfranchised with the planning process, but at the end of the day, the decisions that we make around zoning are actually setting the future of our city for your kids and their kids. And it's critical that we make sure that some of the legacies that we're dealing with now in terms of the housing crisis, that we don't leave that for the future as well. And I think those changes are also really important though for some of your mum and dad kind of people that own their homes, that maybe as like some of the generation are getting a bit older, they might build a small house for them to live in at the back of their property and then rent out their bigger house for a family that needs to move into that type of house. So it's really looking at generational change as our communities kind of grow and evolve. And I think it's really important to recognise that cities are always in this constant state of evolution. So I think it's about working through that change process for our communities.